mentioning a recent terrorist incident is something that was and should be unacceptable to India. The quarrel that India has is with Pakistan's army and not with the people of Pakistan in general. There is a way of finding acceptable language, but of not including it at all. I don't know what dynamics were at work, but there was certainly some strong vested interest at play, with Pakistan obviously trying to use Chinese influence, persuade the hosts that it should not be in. And I think India is right to put its foot down at such insensitivity.
A strong message by India when it comes to the SCO Defence Ministers meeting, that India is not going to compromise on anything to do with terrorism, particularly one that emanates from Pakistan. No joint statement. But the larger question over here is the India-Pakistan rivalry holding many such multilateral forums hostage? To discuss this and more, I'm being joined by Ambassador Ajay Bisaria. He was a former High Commissioner of India to Pakistan, has been a very key officer in the Eurasia desk, so understands the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well. Ambassador Bisaria, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Let's begin with the fact that there's a strong message, but there's also the fact that the entire joint statement at the SCO could not be put out, because while India said that there has to be reference of cross-border terrorism, particularly to do with Pahalgam, Pakistan emphasized on Balochistan.
Thanks, Geeta, for having me. I think it's a significant development. It is important for India that in any multilateral or plurilateral or minilateral that it is represented, its basic sensitivities and core concerns should be taken into account. And this is clearly a situation where there is a vested interest at play within the SCO, which is refusing to acknowledge India's key concerns. It is like having a G7 summit after a month after 9/11 and saying that, no, we're not going to refer to 9/11 because that doesn't fit into our agenda. So I think this is something that is unacceptable to India, and that is why I'm sure India has rejected the joint statement and refused to sign it.
Well, when India and Pakistan were going to join the SCO, there was a clear message from the two very important countries in the organization, that's Russia and China, that India-Pakistan rivalry or the bilateral problems should not be an impediment when it comes to SCO. Do you think, Pahalgam is a very different kind of an attack that India experienced, and a lot has changed since then. But do you think right now that is what is happening at the SCO? That we'll see a lot more of it? It's the defense ministers, we have the foreign ministers coming up, and then the heads of state and heads of government.
Yes, so I think there's a different dynamic at play here, because the SCO, it is a multilateral body, it's a plurilateral body, and not all your concerns will be reflected all the time in every document. And that is understood. India understands it as well as any other country. Also, there's a minilateral or multilateral dharma, and that dharma says that you leave bilateral issues at the doorstep as you enter the multilateral room. And, that is the nature of the process. That is how multilateralism is taken forward. But in this case, we are talking of a terrorist incident in a body which claims that it has a regional anti-terrorism structure, the RATS, and it has a commitment towards fighting terrorism in the region. It has a counter-terrorism agenda, a robust one, where all countries cooperate. So not mentioning a recent terrorist incident is something that was and should be unacceptable to India. There is a way of finding acceptable language, but of not including it at all. I don't know what dynamics were at work, but there was certainly some strong vested interest at play, with Pakistan obviously trying to use Chinese influence, persuade the hosts that it should not be in. And I think India is right to put its foot down at such insensitivity.
Will we see more of this in terms of the kind of statements that we will be seeing further from here on? Will we see more of this where Pakistan will try to push its agenda? Because we are, interestingly, hearing a lot more of Balochistan now than ever before.
Well, it really exposes Pakistan's agenda as well, doesn't it? Because if you're saying don't mention a certain terrorist incident, it is exposing a certain agenda. There can be a mention of a terrorist incident without necessarily mentioning the country that is the perpetrator. So I don't know what dynamics went behind the drafting. But to leave it out altogether from what we've seen so far seems quite unacceptable. I think you will have India pushing back wherever its core interests are not covered. This is not the first time in a multilateral meeting that one country has a item of core interest which it wants to push through and doesn't agree on a statement or asks the secretariat or the hosts to change the format of the kind of public communication in order to reflect the fact that this doesn't represent a unanimous view. So I think India will push back. India should push back. That's the nature of the game. You may accept to take more diluted language on certain issues, but to have some core concern deliberately being erased is something that would not be acceptable.
Somebody who served in Pakistan and also handled Eurasia, do you expect a pushback from the two major countries, particularly Russia over here, in ensuring that these impediments are ironed out before the heads of state, heads of government meeting?
Well, there will certainly be diplomacy. There would certainly be attempts. If this is a China-Pakistan collusion, for instance, in order to push a certain agenda and push a certain narrative and China being dredged in by Pakistan to do it, it would be up to the Russians to step in and prevent that kind of dynamic, because it could lead to a situation where India could for instance, walk out of the SCO if this kind of provocation continues. So I think it is important for countries to get together. If there was a certain purpose in the SCO getting together, there was a common objective which was being served. And there ought to be some diplomacy to serve that objective. But if core concerns of one country are just ignored, that country will do a rethink about being within this organization.
I know you don't have a lot of time, so I'll just take a couple of more questions on other multilateral fora that have been hit very hard because of the India-Pakistan rivalry or the problems that we faced from Pakistan, and that has to do with SAARC. Is SAARC practically dead, or can we expect a revival at all of SAARC?
I would say, you never kill anything in international relations. I would say SAARC is perhaps frozen, perhaps ineffective at this point of time, but never say never. There could be a future where the SAARC could be revived, and that could happen if Pakistan changes its behavior on terrorism in some possibly happy, distant future. But at the moment, given this strong terrorism factor, it is very hard for India to be part of another organization that could suffer. So the attempt within the SCO, for instance, was to keep away these purely bilateral issues, but not including something as critical as this is something that wouldn't be acceptable. And within the SARC as well, it would make SARC a non-starter. For instance, if SARC has to be revived, there has to be an attempt by Pakistan to change its behavior and to demonstrate that it is willing to behave as a normal country, dealing with its neighbors in a normal neighborly manner.
And finally, talks and terror can't go together. There has been an absolute halt when it comes to cultural diplomacy, cricket diplomacy. I have to ask you this regarding the recent controversy. A movie coming out has been talked about rather because of not what the movie is about, but because it has a Pakistani actress, an actor from Pakistan, and she's been making rather anti-India statements all through Operation Sindoor and after. What do you make of the kind of call that is out there to stop the movie, to not air the film, and has stopping cultural diplomacy ever been a deterrent when it comes to Pakistan?
Well, with Pakistan, we've seen that when times are tough, when the relationship reaches a crisis point and there's hostility, everything stops. Visas stop, people-to-people relations come to a standstill. Cultural relations are also hit. In this particular case, I'm not very sure. I haven't followed it closely, but I don't think there should be any government intervention. If at all, there can be a social intervention against that particular actor. But I would say that the attempt should be to try and maintain some kind of connections at the people level, because really the quarrel that India has is with Pakistan's army and not with the people of Pakistan in general. And therefore, I wouldn't want too much intervention from my standpoint into the cultural space, certainly not by the governments. But I think we ought to continue to have faith in diplomacy, in conveying clear messages to each other. And at this point of time, I don't see any hope for any kind of conversation reviving.
But you've put out a very, very strong message that a clear distinction has to be made between the Pakistani establishment, that's the military that runs Pakistan, and the people who also suffer at the hands of the very same establishment. Hi, Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, thank you so much for joining us here on the network.
Thank you, Geeta.